This will not come as a shock to any of you unless you are living in some alternate universe. But the General Social Survey, which has collected data on American attitudes and behaviors since 1972, has concluded that folks in the U.S. are deeply unhappy, more unhappy today than they've been in 50 years. In fact, just 14% of American adults say they're happy. 2020 has been rough on the American psyche. Things are a hot mess right now. When things are good, I know I don't really tend to look inward, but when things are bad, I do. And these days almost force us to look inward at our deeply entrenched positions, at our long invested beliefs, at our insistence on being right even when evidence says differently. It's like we're being required to take a course in relentless self-analysis 101. We are in a battle with the changing of our minds and our perspectives. There are a lot of barriers to changing your mind: ego, overconfidence, apathy, cost, politicians who flip-flop, get mocked, family and friends who move from old, stuck views to new, life-giving views, get shamed or shunned. We've all changed our minds at some point about something. Maybe you've decided the place where you lived or the job you did or the person you were with or the belief you depended on just wasn't working for you anymore. Changing your mind is rarely easy. It's not something you set out to do. Like most people, you would probably much rather prefer other people to change their minds, to think more like you. Because changing your mind means admitting on some level that you used to be wrong. It can be seen as an act of weakness, even heresy. In fact, people tend to underestimate just how much we end up talking and listening to others who have very similar views. To associate with other like-minded people can be comforting. It can give you a sense of power against those whose minds are not like yours. Which unfortunately means that many of us struggle to listen to opposing views and therefore have a hard time changing our minds because we are hardwired to create a world of us and them. Many people often settle for superficial understanding over critical thinking. We tend to see the world and cherry pick facts that support our version of the world. And so it takes a really big external shock of some kind that clearly proves you wrong. Well, if 2020 hasn't shocked you yet, I really don't know what else to say. But in the midst of all these shock waves, I wonder if the barriers that keep people from changing their minds are more connected with the heart than we think. Moses changed his mind because God's universal concern for the freedom of God's people captured Moses' heart. Pharaoh did not change his mind because his heart was hardened. Moses follows God's plan. Stand up for justice for the Israelites. Don't give up the fight. Demand what is right. Pharaoh has another plan. Keep the Israelites oppressed. Keep them under the boot of the empire where they belong. The story of Pharaoh's hardened heart leads to a kind of anti-creation narrative, one where the world is coming undone and actively being destroyed. Sound familiar? Moses and his people are pleading for God to free them from the corrupt power of empire. Enough is enough of this broken system that keeps us oppressed. And God hears their cries for justice. Justice in the larger Hebrew thought refers to a far larger state of everybody having what they need: food, protection, safety, legal recourse to argue their case if they're oppressed. Justice is about abundance, plenty, and everybody having enough. In case you haven't learned by now, how you read the Bible and how you see yourself in it, how we see all of ourselves in it, will inform your view, our view of God and how we engage in God's work. It will most likely require a change of mind at some point. I always saw myself in this story being closely aligned with Moses and the Israelites. Moses and Israel, good. Pharaoh and Egypt, bad. I'm walking with Israel. They are God's people, and so am I. Then I went on a journey of unlearning and listening and then relearning. And what I discovered after looking inward at my deeply entrenched positions and my long invested beliefs changed my mind. I learned the hard truth that I have more in common with Pharaoh than Moses. A modern Pharaoh looks a bit like the reflection in my mirror, and maybe in yours. Pharaoh's hardened heart reveals to us how a person's clinging to power can literally unravel creation. We have seam rippers in our hands when God wants us to have a needle and thread. Moses and the people cry out for freedom, and the empire does not listen. But God listens because it is a holy cry from Moses and the people. And the Israelites' circumstances are the means through which God reveals this universal concern for all people. What the enslaved understood and testified to is that God's concern is freedom. God's intention is for all people, including black people, to freely and fully reflect the very image of a God who does not do oppression. So, speaking out against white supremacy and race-based violence does not make you anti-white. It does not make you anti-police. It does not make you right or left, conservative or liberal. It makes you pro-God's justice. Caring about human lives isn't political, and it's all political at the same time. It's at the head and heart of God. It's at the head and heart of God in Jesus Christ, whose living water we boast of while the world goes up in flames. Pharaoh's got a hard heart and a stuck mind and is comfortable with how things are. After all, there are a lot of self-imposed barriers to break down: ego, overconfidence, apathy, cost. And that's treacherous work. And if you're not careful, changing how things are in the well-managed empire just might lead to a changed mind and a changed heart. Ultimately, Pharaoh's grip on control and power in a broken system unravels. Justice wins. Love wins. Freedom wins. Somehow, some way, God always has the last word. And God's last word is always grace. And grace means freedom and equality in more ways than you and I probably dare to admit. So, friends, may you be willing to unlearn, listen, and then relearn so God can loosen your grip on control, soften your heart, and renew your mind. May you realign with the Jesus who was born on the underside of the empire and who came to disrupt and dismantle its ways of power. May you follow Jesus' way of reorienting and reordering society in light of God's universal loving concern for all people. May your mind and heart be like the mind and heart of Jesus Christ, who said with his life in every way, no more oppression, no more unjust status quo. May the peace of Jesus Christ be with you and move you. Amen.